And ooh. All right, hang on. Okay, there we go. All right, here we go. And we're live. Welcome to Entertain FM, the Cosmos radio station. If you're seeking alpha in the cosmos, look no further. I'm your host, Chjango Unchained. Today, we are here with an exciting project. It wasn't launched more than a week ago, and since then, it has caught the Cosmos ecosystem by storm. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about asteroids. What are ROIDS? You know, it's an injection unit into a blockchain to make it interesting, strong, and robust. Yeah, within a week of launch, there's been more than 4,000 inscriptions ensuing after the initial one, ROIDS. And most of them have been minting out within a matter of minutes. So there's been a lot of inscriptions that have been botted, but there are also other ones that have real users in it. So yeah, welcome to the show, Donovan and Redphone.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I would say that Asteroid has kicked off Inscriptions summer, not only on Bitcoin but in Cosmos. And what's awesome is that I think the Cosmos Hub has been looking for some kind of utility or like some interesting angle, and Asteroids did that. It generated huge amounts of volume, and people are paying fees in Atom, so that's awesome. By the way, Donovan is the core developer of Asteroids, and Redphone is the veritable 20s. Is that a fair introduction?
I love it.
Yeah, absolute fair.
Okay, so first of all, let's establish a baseline here. What are inscriptions? Just, if those of you who are tuning in don't necessarily understand, inscriptions are not tokens, but rather it's in the Bitcoin context, it's metadata appended to each Satoshi. But in the Cosmos Hub context, it's some specific words, name of ticker symbol that's inscribed. Like, how would you guys describe inscriptions?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to think of this is it's a bunch of encoder data that we put inside of the transaction as well, and it gets written to the blockchain. So it's metadata for the transaction. It's just a piece of the transaction that's not used by the chain at all. It's kind of discarded, but it's still stored. So it looks at it. I don't implement this. I'm just going to store it, and that specific section allows us to put 550 kilobytes or so in it. So with that, we are able to do the images, we're able to do logos for tokens, we're able to do with a memo field that's a lot shorter, we're able to do all of the token stuff with that. But where it gets interesting is where you have that 550 kilobytes of space, it opens up a whole world of new possibilities, really.
Yeah, I think with ordinals, the example I like to use
Right.
is, do I sound okay?
You sound fine.
Okay. With ordinals, I like to use this example of a penny. So if you have a penny, you can scratch some information on it, some art, then you could go to the store and spend that penny. So that penny, the art is forever tied to that penny, no matter what you do with it. So that works really well in the context of Bitcoin, and we're just kind of taking that model and bringing it to Cosmos Hub. And I think it's particularly interesting on Cosmos Hub because The hub doesn't support smart contracts, it doesn't support NFTs or fungible tokens. This is like a whole new layer of functionality for the hub, and I think we're just barely scratching the surface of what's possible with this stuff.
Would you so that actually reminds me of the scene in what's that movie called? Oh man, I'm forgetting the name of the movie, but basically the villain holds up this guy and makes him flip a quarter, make him call heads or tails. And if he loses, he dies. What is that movie called? No Country for Old Men.
Yes.
That's
You know,
the one,
so-
yeah.
movie.
Yeah, so it's like he's like everything is on the line, and if you lose, that's your red phone analog. How did
Hopefully, I'm not perceived as a killer, though.
Well, I don't know. You do have a clown NFT as your PFP. Hey, okay. So Jose just joined.
Hey.
Jose, welcome to the stream.
Hey.
Yeah, I hope you've been caught up to speed. We were just giving intros right now.
Nice.
But yeah, so we were talking about the CFT 20 standard and how to help people understand what it means. If you want to give your
Yeah.
take on it.
Yeah, what have they
More
said? What have you guys
welcome
said so far?
Yeah, we kind of touched on like how we get on the hub, and Red spoke about like how he kind of explains ordinals with the example of a penny that's being scratched, and that's kind of the where we're at now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one way I've described it like is as like graffiti, but like the only way to wash it off is if you tear down the entire building. It's like immutable graffiti that lives there forever unless the building gets taken down. Like unless the blockchain goes down, these inscriptions kind of live there forever. And so I think in crypto there's like what is a meme coin? A meme coin is kind of like a prediction market on kind of the cultural relevance of something, right? Like you've got this like Trump meme coin now. People are betting that Trump's gonna maybe like win the election and then and all this kind of stuff. Like Doge, dog with a hat or whatever, dog with hat. And so like I think inscriptions, in addition to all the real stuff that I'm sure Redphone can talk about at length, I think they're also like a really interesting way to kind of have this like immutable historical artifact, right, that lives on these chains forever. And I think it's particularly cool on chains where there's a scarcity of like the ability to create those artifacts, right? Like I non-smart contract chains, like makes a lot of, that's why it kind of took off on Bitcoin, right? And like Red was super involved in that, like suggesting the BRC20 standard. And I think it also makes a lot of sense on the Cosmos Hub because there's been like drama and yeah, mainly drama forever on Cosmos about whether or not to enable smart contracts. It's been proposed a bunch of times, turned down, and now this actually enables like us to get a glimpse of what would it be like if the hub had the ability to do smart contracts, to issue tokens, like what kind of stuff would people do on there. So yeah, I think it's interesting for that reason.
Definitely. I mean, this is by far the most interesting use case for the Cosmos Hub. If I were to give a take on that. So you were saying Trump. I mean, like look at how many there are. So I'm at the very end of the list so far. It's only going to grow. I think there's 4165 of them. Like the Trump one is like all the way. It's all the way up in front. But then so there's some that are 100% minted out, and there's others that aren't at all. And so, what do you think makes one more in demand than another? You know, because if someone inscribes Trump, but then and they're that he's going to win, does that is inscription a bet? And if it is, do you win something if they hold the Trump in case he does win? And what happens if he loses? Like, does the value of the Trump inscription go down?
Yeah. I don't know, like the Trump one is a token on ETHland that like someone's launched, like it's the guys who own a big podcast and they did a Trump token. They like airdropped some tokens to his address, you know, the one that he sold his NFT collection from or whatever. And this thing's pumped so much that he now has like 7 figures of it, right? And so at some point it's like a bet of when is he going to start talking about this? Like, is he at some point going to say, you know, talk about it, you know, like there's this Trump token and start shilling it? Or is he just going to probably like quietly dump on everyone? Sounds more Trump-like to me. But yeah, I mean, it's just, if you can, I think it's being able to create like enough of a mimetic, like, I don't know, I'm not an expert on meme coins. I've never really like I've only lost money trading meme coins, I think. So, but there's definitely something interesting there. I'm curious what Red thinks are the most interesting like use cases for inscriptions.
Yeah,
Wait, there's
think
Trump right here. Inscription number 155, Trump 2024. But it's only 3% minted.
Nice.
So does that mean people in Cosmos don't think he's going to win? Like, what does that imply?
Well, all of these tokens actually have different minting parameters. So some of them mint out with really quickly. Like the first token, ROIDS, there were basically 100,000 mints that could be done. That went very quickly. But some of these tokens that aren't minted out yet could require like 1 million mints. So it's not necessarily a correlation between uh, the popularity of the token and its minting progress. It really depends on the supply of the token and how many tokens someone could mint out as well, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, go ahead.
So you're saying it's predicated on the parameters?
Yeah, exactly. So when you set up a token, you can say, I want it to have a supply of 10 million. And then you could set the number that people can mint per transaction. So I could say, uh, this token has a total supply of 10 million. And every time someone mints one, they only get 1 token. So that would require 10 million mint. Or you could say this token has a supply of 10 million. Every time someone mints it, they get 10,000 tokens. So there's totally different dynamics depending on what the creator chose when they set it up.
What about, okay, so I'm going to use the runes example, the rune CFT. That one was completely botted, and in under 4 minutes the bots completely consumed the entire supply of it. But then they had some super secret secondary token called Veggies, which, you know, my friend, a fellow ordinals degen, gave me the alpha on. He's like, this is the backup, so you want to mint Veggies just in case runes gets completely botted. So then and then Veggies actually had a more I guess organic index about the number of real users that are minting it. So that one one more botted than another. Like, you know, why do the Chinese inscriptions farms, you know, select one over another?
Yeah, I think they're choosing them based on just how much public interest there is in a token. So runes had a ton of clout, a ton of people talking about it on Twitter. So obviously the bots were ready for it to drop. And with runes in particular, they set a launch date and time in the future. So anyone running bots, they knew exactly when to kick those on and when to start minting. A lot of other people have chosen to launch tokens with just organically, like as soon as they upload the icon for the token, they just pushed it live for minting. So there's a little bit more delay. Bots aren't necessarily ready for those, so they could have a little bit more organic minting going on.
Got it. Okay, and to establish more of a baseline for those who are trying to wrap their head around the architecture of this whole thing. So the Inscriptions protocol, CFC20, is running on Cosmos Hub, but then there's also this marketplace, and the marketplace is using Astroport to some extent, right, on Neutron. And is that where you're taking the fees? Like, is so the marketplace is like this off-chain thing that uses the indexer, but then there's also the use of Neutron where there is contract. Is that right?
Not yet. So at the moment, it's all on the Cosmos Hub, running through the indexer, kind of living off chain. And we've defined kind of like this idea of a meta protocol on top of the hub. And the CFT20s is a meta protocol. The Inscriptions is a meta protocol. The marketplace is a meta protocol. And that's just a set of rules that the indexer follows when it sees specific types of transactions. And so for now, the marketplace is just on the hub using its own little meta protocol for the deposit and buy kind of setup. To get it to Neutron, we need a bridge, and there's some work and thinking being done there, which would bring these into like a more real token. It would become a native token on Neutron.
Got it. And we have a question from the audience member, Shivak Singh. I'm sorry, Shivanks. I'm not going to say your name. When ROIDS flipping atoms. This is actually like a common narrative right now. The thought is that inscriptions are going to somehow flip in. Like I think it's said tongue in cheek, but still the narrative goes that it's going to flip in like a larger, blue chip, high liquidity coin. And I think that is a testament to how frothy this stuff is. And that's so I'm going to segue to something fun to talk about. And I think I'm going to talk about the attack vectors that happen with Asteroid. And this is something that I credit Daniel Farina. He used to work with me at Osmosis. He submitted some bug reports with Asteroids, right? And place in the indexer. So so what happened in the when the marketplace opened was there was this problem of double buying, right? Where people were able to, or rather that for one listing there were multiple bids for it, and each of those bids went through and they were redundant, but only one person was able to purchase the listing. So and because of that, Asteroid, you guys had to take down the marketplace front end. But the problem with such huge demand was that people spun up their own UIs and then kept trading anyway. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that issue is kind of a symptom of it not being on chain. Like, there's no like instant finality kind of things, like a trade. There's no like a rejected transaction returns your funds, things like that, because we don't actually control any of the funds. It's a peer-to-peer marketplace. You send the atoms to that guy, and the system sends you the ROIDS back to you. So we really quickly realized that. Beforehand, we thought we might see 10, 20 people on the side during the day, and things would kind of slowly grow over time. but instead, thousands came in on that first night, and that quickly grew into a legitimate issue where people were clicking buy, signing the transaction. Multiple people would be sending the atoms, and the system would go, well, you were first, you get the ROIDS, all of the rest, so you're rejected. And there was no way to get that back, of course. So then, yes, we took it down, and people spun up their own front ends, just put it back. And because we can't just go and enable and disable things in the indexer, it has to kind of stay as it is in whatever flawed state it might be. And then when we fix things, like the new marketplace, it's always an addition to the indexer. It's never like we stop, we re-index, we do something like that. We just keep adding to it like you would on a chain. So the solution for that was, and this also came from some of the other Asteroid contributors, is to have a deposit, and once your deposit is accepted, then you get to buy it within a time frame. And the deposit is a lot smaller than the full buy. So instead of sending 100 atoms to buy it and you get rejected because someone else was before you, you now send like 0.01 atom, and once it's reserved, you can buy. No one else can touch it until you kind of buy it, or it expires in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Mhm.
But it was an interesting time because we saw a lot of trading, of course, on these front ends, and we'll probably do some research and put out some numbers on how many times people were successful or not successful. But it was when you entered that area, it felt a bit dangerous, but also kind of exciting, like you're part of something new, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, I really like how you mentioned that dangerous element. That's kind of what drew me to ordinals in the early days. Is this like no one had to ask permission to start inscribing on Bitcoin, uh, and it gave Bitcoin this sort of cypherpunk feeling that it hadn't had in years, and it just made me fall in love with that. And the concept is really similar on Cosmos Hub. We didn't have to talk to anyone at Cosmos Hub. We didn't have to put up a governance proposal. We were just able to launch this, and hopefully we turn it into a really cool ecosystem that's kind of using Cosmos Hub as its base. But I really love that sort of permissionless, anyone can do whatever they want with it approach. So that I think that's a huge part of its charm.
But yeah, so far it seems like the new marketplace is really working well. We haven't seen a lot of complaints about people losing money or deposits, so that's been very promising in the last, what's it now, day, just over a day.
I'm sorry, I'm just having some connectivity issues.
Yeah.
But Runes asks, when could we expect Inscription Marketplace, and could that possibly be linked to selling in only specific CFT20s?
I'll leave that to Red.
Yeah, we really want to get a marketplace up for artwork and generalized inscriptions. We've talked about the idea of allowing payments in CFT20s, but we haven't solidified anything yet. I would encourage people, if they have ideas, just hop into the Telegram group and share those in like the dev chat or something. We're super open to any feedback and ideas from the community. And yeah, we haven't nailed it down exactly yet, but we know that's something we need to ship soon.
Poker Crypto asks, why are the fees that high? Trading tokens never had that high of a fee.
I'm guessing he's talking about when you actually buy. There's a couple of fees that we had to introduce because during this time when our marketplace was down and some of the other guys booted up their marketplaces, initially they kept the fees that we had, then they added some more, then they removed ours, and I don't know if they eventually removed theirs as well. But during this time, we saw bots that would list and repeatedly list and delist specific tokens for sale, and in a way then trap people to click buy, sign, and by the time that transaction reaches the network, the bot already removed the listing. So they were doing that, trying to extract even more money from people. So one of the things we introduced was a small listing fee, and it's a 0.01% or so. And then when you want a deposit to buy a specific set of tokens, you would then pay that same fee that the guy that listed it, you would pay that as a deposit. So that kind of helps prevent bots. We don't really have enough data to make sure that that is not happening anymore, but it's financial disincentivizing the bots from doing this flipping and kind of trying to trap people. The buy fee, the 2%, I think we just approach
that's
it
a
more
neat
like
segue into.
I think there we go.
Sorry, I'm really having some connectivity issues. My bad. Oh man, this is the problem with living in a third world country in the United States. Okay, so anyway, so it's like, yeah, it's as if, you know, I were living in Puerto Rico. Okay, so that was actually a neat segue into the other attack vector that this has introduced, which is another one that Daniel Farina talks about, which is the DDoS attack on. So what someone could potentially do is, as what Donovan described, which is they list inscriptions for like on the cheap, and then that looks like a juicy buy for anyone, for buyers, and then they could, what they could do is the DDoS the indexer, and so the indexer doesn't update the listing, and then now with the redundancy of the buys, people are just like running and queuing up to try to buy that cheap inscription, not knowing that this is an attack. So how so I guess you did mention that your like your civil resistance mechanism does do something to prevent. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we'll still figure out and find out exactly how people are exploiting pieces of it, and we keep figuring them out and kind of fixing them. But yeah, the DDoS on the indexer, easiest solution is decentralized. More people run more indexers, more people have the data, because everything's on chain. You can just start it up and index yourself, and you'll have the same data as all of us we do. And we've been having a lot of discussions around that, and how do we make it so that all of this isn't purely reliant on us running infrastructure. So in that case, if you were to DDoS one indexer, the other ones would still pick it up and they would still read the transactions. And eventually, when that one comes back, they'll all be back in sync. But it definitely gets more complex as you start looking at all of the potential things that could go wrong. And you know, I don't really see meta protocols as being a place to build financial products. I mean, we've got the chains and all of the real like smart contracts and things for specifically that, and making it safe. Where I see this play out is more social-fi, more fun apps that are not multi-million dollars, you know, being traded and stored there. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't know if Red has something else to add to that.
oh,
Yeah,
but it has to flip an atom. Ordinals has got to flip in Bitcoin, man.
Yeah, I do agree with that, Donovan. There's also this element to asteroids of sort of democratizing the ability to launch tokens and to issue NFTs. Like there are lots of platforms where you can do that stuff, but they're all kind of siloed. They're kind of taking their own approach. There's no like industry-wide standard for how you should deploy NFTs, for example. Asteroids makes it so easy. Like anyone can do it. You can launch a token in 10 seconds with just, less than an atom in your wallet. It's by far the easiest and most democratized way to do a lot of this stuff. And I think it's kind of a new era for crypto. This was really the domain of devs, and you would have to hire someone to launch this stuff. But inscriptions make it so easy that it's open to anyone, and I really like that. And I think it's gonna open up some really creative uses for this stuff.
Right. So in terms of launching inscriptions, there's not really any straightforward way for the deployer to earn any revenue, right? Where the revenue is earned is in the marketplace. Right. So for the Asteroid protocol, you're earning fees on Neutron. Is that correct? And do you know off the top of your head how much revenue that you've made already?
It's tough to say because while the market was down, like all of these other front ends redirected the fees to themselves or removed it completely. If they didn't do that and it still flowed to Neutron, I'm guessing it would have been roughly 20,000 or so. If I had to take a
What,
guesstimate,
notional or nominal?
like $20,000 roughly.
Okay. All right. So
If
notional.
so just a guesstimate there from the 2% fee. But yeah, like you were just saying about like how do like the creators make the money, and I don't think we really have that settled in yet. And the 2% fee is kind of from NFT marketplaces and things, and it's still very experimental. It might come down. We'll see. But I don't know, Red. You spend a lot more time in the NFT space. Like, how would creators kind of make money from this?
So
Yeah, I
we've
mean,
got
right
some.
now.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like right now, the fees are like the marketplace is really like an NFT marketplace. It's not like an AMM. So you create an order and someone can come and complete the other side of that order. So maybe you're selling 1,000 roids for 10 atom or something like that. And it does require kind of some infrastructure to run the marketplace. It's not just autonomous smart contracts running all this. So the fees hopefully will help us have funding to keep developing this stuff. But ultimately, yeah, we don't want to be the main marketplace. I would love to see like an ecosystem of marketplaces out there, and just other people building on top of this.
ZK CryptoMind asks, can you explain in easy words what your long-term vision for the project as well as for the token is?
Guess I can go first. I guess I would say I envision like hundreds of meta protocols. Like right now, we only have 3. We've got a marketplace meta protocol, we've got a fungible tokens protocol, and we've got like kind of a generalized way to publish data. But if you look at Bitcoin, there's already probably at least 10 meta protocols that are getting traction. There's like 3 main meta protocols just for tokens. So there's like ERC20s, there's CBRC20s, there's runes, there's all sorts of different protocols. So that's really what I'd love to see here. I'd love to see tons of meta protocols doing really interesting things. Definitely not just fungible tokens, but cool experiments around art and culture.
Yeah, I think I agree a lot with that. Like, one of the things that make these protocols very attractive is like it's not as serious as like the smart contracts. Like, it might not make sense for you to build a smart contract to play chess against someone on chain. With a meta protocol, you can kind of do that. If you wanted to have like a message board, you can go and do that. There's so many social things you can do, and because you come from a Binance, you get to the Cosmos Hub. You've got some Atom. There's a lot for you now to do. You can go and explore a bit, and then you get into the rest of the ecosystem and go trade on Neutron, on Astroport, or go to Osmosis, go to Mars, go borrow, go lend. But your first entry point is a lot more lighthearted, just getting you into the ecosystem. That's kind of how I see it becoming like a stepping stone into a whole world of stuff that you have to do in Cosmos that doesn't necessarily make sense as a contract.
Fair. We've got a question from the audience that suggests you use ROID as the currency. Is there any plan for that?
We have definitely talked about that internally. I think it's got a lot of potential because it can help mitigate some of those double buy issues. So, like if you're settling a transaction in ROIDS, that's happening on the indexer level. So that doesn't put your atom at risk. So there's definitely some huge advantages there. But we haven't settled on anything.
Yeah, I think the trade-off is kind of like if you have everything in ROIDS, then it's kind of annoying UX. If you just want to buy stuff, you have to like acquire ROIDS, and liquidity for ROIDS isn't necessarily great. Like I don't think the marketplace shows it in a like we were looking to improve the way the marketplace shows liquidity as well, so you can have like a more seamless kind of swap UI. But the advantage is, like Redphone said, you can settle instantly, right? You don't have to wait. Like you don't risk getting double spent, and at the same time, you don't have to wait like you do now. Which, yeah, it's kind of like between a rock and a hard place, right? Like you either risk the double spends, which was no fun, or you have like this waiting time, which just makes the trading a bit slow. And I feel like the ROIDS could just be like this fast, like maybe offer as an option to have like fast trading in ROIDS, and then you just need the liquidity on ROIDS to improve, or to have like easy way to get into ROIDS. But yeah, I personally think it's I personally like it more and more the more I've been using the marketplace and like kind of interacting with this slower experience. I kind of like the idea of having a fast ROIDS settlement option.
Yeah, we need more ROID liquidity. We're going to get a question from the audience from Dan. How were you able to create an upgraded marketplace to prevent double spending in less than a week? And how much sleep did you get each day during this process? Good question.
Not a lot. Not a lot. Like building like a meta protocol has become fairly. It's actually a kind of a simple process once you've done it once, and we're going to put up some docs and things for any developer to kind of get into it. But there was a lot of thinking and research and things going on behind the scenes on like how this should work. And then yeah, the sleep was few and far between, especially like on the launch night, no sleep the next day. Then a day later, we take down the marketplace. We start fixing it. So yeah, it was a chaotic time, but absolutely worth it.
Right. All right. So finally, what were your takeaways, and were you surprised at all by the demand? Like, were you were you expecting it? And if not, did you anticipate that you would have a lot of sleepless nights in the last week? It's been less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would say I greatly underestimated the degenerate nature of Cosmos users. I even on that first day, like I thought, oh, I'll mint some roids tomorrow. You know, I'll have plenty of time to do this. So I was working on other things, and roids minted out in a couple hours. So I think almost all of us were absolutely shocked by the adoption. We didn't get a chance to mint a lot of roids, which I think is uh, actually pretty nice for the community because it's a super decentralized coin. And this is just a sign that people like these sort of experiments. And I feel like we touched kind of a live nerve here. And we're kind of focused on bringing in other builders so that we can keep this energy going.
Didn't you anticipate this though, seeing as how inscriptions were so massive on Bitcoin and other chains? Did you see that on Celestia, the first inscriptions that was launched called Ceus, that minted out, and it was being botted the crap out of by like Chinese grandmas in botting farms. Like people were sharing video of that all over Twitter.
I think for us, because we implemented something that could put a half a megabyte on chain, I was always worried that we might get some backlash for that, maybe from validators or from this. But yeah, just like that question asks, and that was like one of the concerns that there, and in most of the places where inscriptions have been, there's been two camps: those that love it and those that absolutely hate it. And we really expected, like, we'll probably see a lot more negativity, perhaps, because we know how the cosmos operates. But it turned out to be the exact opposite. It's just been people loving it, people using it every day. Here and there, people are talking about it, that they're not supporting it really, but essentially, like, definitely did not expect it to go this well. And just to answer that question, it makes it larger, but I wouldn't say massive. Like, it's still, the amount we put on chain at the maximum is still like half of the maximum transaction size theoretically. It does increase the size, but it's not, if there's a block with 1,000 transactions, it's not 1,000 images. It's tiny memos, the memos you use when you send to a centralized exchange. It's the common stuff. And so far, I think we've added maybe 2 gigabytes to the chain size. So it's not like it's an exponential upwards kind of growing the chain at a stupid rate. Yeah.
Yeah, you're lucky that we don't have the equivalent of Luke Dash Jr. in Cosmos. So I think for the most part, you have people who are generally excited about it. And yeah, and Cosmos Hub is like slightly more liberal leaning with its block space than Bitcoin is, because it's not supposed to be like a store of value, even though, you know, now maybe it can be. So got Mufasa's second son. He's asking, ROIDS DAO on Enterprise Protocol on Terra.
Sounds
That's
cool.
interesting.
Yeah, like, if we do activate this bridge and we give people a way to get ROIDS onto issued as like a token factory token on other chains, it opens up all sorts of possibilities like this. ROIDS could suddenly be LP'd in Astroport pools. It could be used for governance with all the pre-existing tools that are out there. But yeah, I mean, me personally, I would love to see some sort of governance develop within the Asteroids protocol itself. But yeah, I don't think we're going to have much control over that. I think it is going to be an organic thing that comes out of the community. Yeah, we can't just unilaterally declare how we think governance should work for this. So yeah, I love options like Enterprise DAO or using other platforms.
And with IBC, it could actually it could govern the indexers on the hub as well, which makes all of this really interesting.
Nice.
Okay, so that would make ROIDS the de facto
So sorry, I think it broke up there for a second. Could you just repeat that?
so that makes ROIDS, that would make ROIDS the governance token for asteroid indexers.
Perhaps. Can't really say with certainty yet, but there's definitely some people in the community and some of the dev chats that think that's the way to go. Yeah.
Okay, I know this is considered radioactive for a lot of people, but somebody asked. Umee, by the way, someone earlier predicted that ROIDS is going to flip an atom. What do you think? Or
Such
what
a
do the
hard
panelists
question.
think?
Maybe one roid should equal one hypodermic needle. I don't know how much are needles. So.
I'm
What do you
sorry,
think,
I
Donovan?
cut out.
Any ideas?
I'm just thinking for once it's not my internet, so
Oh my gosh. I am dying. I can hear like half of what you guys say, like half the time. And I'm trying to like infer and fill in the gaps. This is not a good day for streaming today.
yeah. I don't know if Red, you want to repeat the last bit or so? I don't know if.
Oh, I was just kidding. I said one roid should equal one hypodermic needle. So whatever the market price for a hypodermic needle is, maybe that should be our target.
Well, you know the most liquid market for that, right? In the physical world,
What's that?
San Francisco tenderloin. Okay, so Andre from Astroport asks, or he said, asteroids generally are made of millions of atoms. That's true.
That is true.
That's true.
Very cool.
Okay. You know what? Okay, so since I'm struggling with my internet, I'm so sorry, guys, that this is happening. Let's conclude. This has been a fantastic episode, and I'm thankful for the insight that you guys
Um,
Yeah, looks like we lost her. Do you have any closing thoughts, Donovan?
we lost you completely there.
You know what? This is just like not the day for streaming. I'm sorry, guys.
Did you share the
Should we
wisest
close out?
words? And yeah, sure. Yeah, so hopefully that kind of gives you guys an idea of like what meta protocols are and kind of how you can go and extend what the hub can do. And we've got a Telegram, we've got Twitter. Just hop in, ask questions. We've got a bunch of people in there, especially if you're into the development side of things. We've got groups for that, and we're always happy to hear ideas. If you find bugs, please send them over. Let's get them sorted. But yeah, really excited to see where this goes in the next month, and yeah, we keep bringing more life in.
Awesome. Keep up the good work and keep the cypherpunk movement going. Great. Thanks, guys, for
Absolutely.
tuning in live. I'm sorry about my connectivity issues, but we will keep striving to bring you more and better crypto alpha in the coming bull market. And yeah, hope to see you guys doing more with ROIDS. You know, maybe I'll get injected with ROIDS as well, even though I'm a female. All right, see you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.